In an extraordinary revelation, the Blessed Virgin Mary and the Lord Jesus Christ speak of the holy city of Rome and her many martyrs. Virgo Potens presents Book 3, chapters 27 through 28 from Prophecies and Revelations by Saint Bridget of Sweden. Chapter 27. O Mary, I have been unkind, but still I call you to my aid. I pray to you that you may graciously pray for the excellent and holy city of Rome. I can physically see that some of the churches are abandoned where the bones of the saints lie in rest. Some of them are inhabited, but the heart and conduct of their rectors are far from God. Procure mercy for them, for I have heard it is written that there are 7,000 martyrs for any day in the year at Rome. Although their souls do not receive less honor in heaven, because their bones are held in contempt here on earth, nevertheless, I ask you that greater honor may be given to your saints, and to the relics of your saints here on earth, and that the devotion of the people may be stirred up in this way. The Mother of God answered, If you measured out a plot of land 100 feet in length, and as much in width, and sowed it so full of pure grains of wheat, that the grains were so close together that there was just the space of a thumb left between them, and even if each grain gave fruit 100-fold, there would still be more Roman martyrs and confessors from the time when Peter came to Rome in humility until Celestine left from the throne of pride and returned to his solitary life. But I am referring to those martyrs and confessors who, against infidelity, preached true fidelity, and against pride, preached humility, and who died or were ready in intention to die for the truth of the faith. Peter and many others were so wise and zealous in spreading the word of God that they would readily have died for each and every person if they had been able. However, they were also concerned lest they be taken suddenly from the presence of those people whom they nourished with their words of consolation and preaching, for they desired to save souls more than to save their own lives and reputation. They were also prudent, and hence went to work in secret during times of persecution, in order to win and gather together a greater number of souls. Between these two, between Peter and Celestine, not everyone has been good, but not everyone has been bad either. Now let us set up 3 degrees or ranks, as you yourself are doing: positive, comparative, and superlative, or good, better, and best. To the first rank belong those whose thoughts were the following: We believe whatever the Holy Church teaches. We do not want to defraud anyone, but to give back whatever has been fraudulently taken, and we want to serve God with all our heart. There were people like that in the time of Romulus, the founder of Rome, and, after their own beliefs, they thought as follows: We understand and recognize through creatures that God is the creator of all things, and therefore we want to love him above all else. There were also many who thought like this: We have heard from the Hebrews that the true God has revealed himself through manifest miracles. So, if we only knew where to place our trust, we would place it there. We can say that all of these belonged to the first rank. At the appointed time, Peter arrived in Rome. He raised some people to the positive rank, others to the comparative rank, and still others to the superlative. To the positive rank belonged those who accepted the true faith and lived in matrimony or in another honorable state. To the comparative rank belonged those who gave up their possessions out of love for God, and set others the example of a good life in words and example and deed, and did not put anything ahead of Christ. To the superlative rank belonged those who offered their physical lives out of love for God. But let us make a search for these ranks to find out where there is now a more fervent love of God. Let us search among the knights and the learned. Let us search among the religious and those who have scorned the world. These people would be thought to belong to the comparative and superlative ranks, yet, indeed, very few are found. There is no life more austere than the life of a knight, if he truly follows his calling. While a monk is obliged to wear a cowl, a knight is obliged to wear something heavier, namely, a coat of mail. While it is hard for a monk to fight against the will of the flesh, it is harder for a knight to go forth among armed armies. While a monk must sleep on a hard bed, it is harder still for the knight to sleep with his weapons. While a monk finds abstinence a burden and trouble, it is harder for the knight to be constantly burdened by fear for his life. Christian knighthood was not established out of greed for worldly possessions, but in order to defend the truth and spread the true faith. For this reason, the knightly rank and the monastic rank should be thought to correspond to the superlative or comparative rank. However, those in every rank have deserted their honorable calling, since the love for God has been perverted into worldly greed. If but a single florin were offered them, most of them in all three ranks would keep silent about the truth, rather than lose the florin and speak the truth. St. Bridget speaks again. I also saw what looked like many gardens on earth. I saw roses and lilies in the gardens. In one spacious plot of land, I saw a field of 100 feet in length and as much in width. In each foot of land there were 7 grains of wheat sown, and each grain gave fruit 100-fold. Then I heard a voice saying, O Rome, Rome, your walls have crumbled. Your city gates are therefore unguarded. Your vessels are being sold. Your altars have therefore been abandoned. The living sacrifice along with the incense of matins is burned in the portico. The sweet and holy fragrance does not come from the Holy of Holies. At once the Son of God appeared and said to St. Bridget, I will tell you the meaning of the things you have seen. The land you saw represents the entire territory where the Christian faith is now. The gardens represent those places where God's saints received their crowns. However, in paganism, that is, in Jerusalem, and in other places, there were many of God's elect, but their places have not been shown to you now. The field that is 100 paces in length, and is as much in width, stands for Rome. If all the gardens of the whole world were to be brought alongside Rome, Rome would certainly be as great as to the number of martyrs. I am speaking materially, because it is the place chosen for the love of God. The wheat you saw in each foot of land represents those who have entered heaven through mortification of the flesh, contrition and innocence of life. The few roses represent the martyrs, who are red from the blood they shed in different regions. The lilies are the confessors who preached and confirmed the holy faith by word and deed. Today I can say of Rome what the prophet said of Jerusalem. Once righteousness lodged in her, and her princes were princes of peace. Now she has turned to dross, and her princes have become murderers. O Rome, if you knew your days, you would surely weep and not rejoice. Rome was in olden days like a tapestry dyed in beautiful colors and woven with noble threads. Its soil was dyed in red, that is, in the blood of martyrs, and woven, that is, mixed with the bones of the saints. Now her gates are abandoned, in that their defenders and guardians have turned to avarice. Her walls are thrown down and left unguarded, in that no one cares that souls are being lost. Rather, the clergy and the people, who are the walls of God, have scattered away to work for carnal advantage. The sacred vessels are sold with scorn, in that God's sacraments are administered for money and worldly favors. The altars are abandoned, in that the priest who celebrates with the vessels has hands empty as to love for God, but keeps his eyes on the collection. Although he has God in his hands, his heart is empty of God, for it is full of the vain things of the world. The Holy of Holies, where the highest sacrifice used to be consumed, represents the desire to see and enjoy God. From this desire, there should rise up love for God and neighbor, and the fragrance of temperance and virtue. However, the sacrifice is now consumed in the portico, that is, in the world, in that the love for God has completely turned into worldly vanity and lack of temperance. Such is Rome, as you have seen it physically. Many altars are abandoned. The collection is spent in taverns, and the people who give to it have more time for the world than for God. But you should know that countless souls ascended into heaven from the time of humble Peter until Boniface ascended the throne of pride. Yet Rome is still not without friends of God. If they were given some help, they would cry out to the Lord, and he would have mercy on them. The Blessed Virgin instructs Saint Bridget about knowing how to love, and about 4 cities where 4 loves are found, and about which of these is properly called perfect love. Chapter 28. The Mother of God speaks to Saint Bridget, saying, "Daughter, do you love me?" She answers, "My Lady, teach me to love, for my soul is defiled with false love, seduced by a deadly poison, and cannot understand true love." The Mother of God says, "I will teach you. There are 4 cities where there are 4 kinds of love, that is, if we are to call each of them love, given that no love can properly be found except where God and the soul are united in the true union of the virtues. The first city is the city of trial. This is the world. A man is placed there to be tested as to whether he loves God or not. This is in order that he may come to know his own weakness and acquire the virtues by which he may return to glory, so that, having been cleansed on earth, he may receive a glorious crown in heaven. One finds disordered love in this city, because the body is loved more than the soul, because there is a more fervent desire for temporal than spiritual good, because vice is honored and virtue despised, because travels abroad are more appreciated than one's own home country, because a little mortal being gets more respect and honor than God, whose reign is everlasting. The second city is the city of cleansing, where the dirt of the soul is washed away. God has willed to set up places where a person who has become proud in the negligent use of his freedom, yet without losing his fear of God, may be cleansed before receiving his crown. One finds imperfect love in this city, inasmuch as God is loved because of a person's hope of being released from captivity, but not out of an ardent affection. This is due to weariness and bitterness in atoning one's guilt. The third city is the city of sorrow. This is hell. Here one finds a love for every kind of evil and impurity, a love for every kind of envy and obstinacy. God governs this city as well. This he does by means of balanced justice, the due moderation of punishments, the restraint of evil, and the fairness of the sentence that takes each sinner's merits into account. Some of the condemned are greater sinners, others lesser. The conditions for their punishment and retribution are set up accordingly. Although all the condemned are enclosed in darkness, not all of them experience it in one and the same way. Darkness differs from darkness, horror from horror, hellfire from hellfire. God's rule is one of justice and mercy everywhere, even in hell. Thus, Those who have sinned deliberately have their particular punishment. Those who have sinned out of weakness have a different one. Those who are being held only because of the damage done by original sin have a different one again. While the torment of these latter consists in a lack of the beatific vision and of the light of the elect, still they come close to mercy and joy in the sense that they do not experience horrible punishments, since they bear no effects of any evil deeds of their own doing. Otherwise, if God did not ordain the number and limit of punishments, the devil would never show any limits in tormenting them. The fourth city is the city of glory. Here one finds perfect love and the ordered charity that desires nothing but God, or but for the sake of God. Hence, if you would reach the perfection of this city, your love needs 4 qualities. It must be ordered, pure, true, and perfect. Your love is ordered when you love the body only for the sake of sustaining yourself, when you love the world without superfluities, your neighbor for God's sake, your friend for the sake of purity of life, and your enemy for the sake of the reward. Love is pure when sin is not loved alongside virtue, when bad habits are scorned, when sin is not taken lightly. Love is true when you love God with all your heart and affections, when you take the glory and fear of God into prior consideration in all your actions, when you commit not the least little sin while trusting to your good deeds, when you practice temperance prudently, without growing weak from too much fervor, when you do not have an inclination to sin out of cowardice or ignorance of temptations. Love is perfect when nothing is as enjoyable to a person as God. This kind of love begins in the present, but is consummated in heaven. Love, then, this perfect and true kind of love. Everyone who does not have it shall be cleansed, no matter whether he is faithful or fervent or a child or baptized. Otherwise he will go to the city of horror. Just as God is one, so too there is one faith, one baptism, one perfection of glory, and reward in the church of Peter. Accordingly, anyone who longs to reach the one God must have one and the same love and will as the one God. Miserable are those who say, "It is enough for me to be the least in heaven. I do not want to be perfect." What a senseless thought! How can someone who is imperfect be there where everyone is perfect, either through innocence of life, or the innocence of childhood, or by cleansing, or by faith and goodwill? Welcome to the Virgo Potens YouTube channel. If you enjoy this video, give it a like. I also invite you to subscribe to this channel so that you won't miss new content. Please prayerfully consider supporting my work by becoming a patron of Virgo Potens on Patreon and or by buying one of my books. My ebooks are available on Amazon as well as on the Apple Bookstore. For those who prefer a physical copy rather than an ebook, my book, Spiritual Warfare, Know Thy Enemy, is also available as a paperback on Amazon. If you are interested in making a one-time contribution, I suggest that you do so by simply buying one of my books. I am thankful for your support. Links to Patreon and to my books will be posted in the comments section of this video. The continuation of this work isn't possible without you. Lastly, and most importantly, please pray for me. May the Virgin Most Powerful guide and protect you.